Tale of road rage murder. It was moving and horrific. It was also a pack of lies.
I saw the man hit Lee. I don't know what with. I didn't see anything.
Lee Harvey's mother gave Andrews comfort at that police press conference, but if detectives were not yet suspicious, she had just about made up her mind.
When I held her hand, 95% of me felt she'd done it, but 5% had to keep back for my son and for the memory of my son, because he loved her, he worshipped her, he trusted her.
Their relationship was violent and turbulent. Tracy had bitten, punched and hit her boyfriend on previous occasions. At other times, like at their engagement party, they were a normal, loving couple. Tracy had ambitions to be a model, a single mother who nevertheless enjoyed a hectic nightlife. Harvey also has a daughter, Danielle, from a previous relationship. No one knows what transpired as they drove home from the pub on the night Lee died, but when the car stopped, Andrews used a Swiss Army-style knife to stab him over 30 times. In just a few minutes, as she was standing over the body of Lee Harvey, Tracy Andrews concocted an elaborate story of a most modern crime, road rage. In fact, she had committed one of the oldest crimes in the book. She had murdered her lover after an argument.
Independently, they were probably fine, but together they were a catalyst that rubbed each other up the wrong way.
The Harveys were devastated by Lee's death. To believe at first that he'd been killed by a complete stranger was hard enough. When they realized he'd been murdered by his own girlfriend, it was too much to bear.
And I thought my son died in the arms of his lover. I feel now that he died at the hands of his lover.
Throughout, she has kept up her pretense. Today, she must face the truth. There were only two people there when Lee Harvey died, the victim and the killer, Tracy Andrews. Eric McInnes, ITN, Birmingham Crown Court.
Tracy Andrews' lawyer said this morning that she was devastated and would immediately start an appeal against her conviction. Now from Birmingham Crown Court, Colin Baker.
The last few steps of freedom for Tracy Andrews. A killer, said the police, a woman of profound deceit, said the prosecution, and the jury agreed. 90 minutes after she arrived at Birmingham Crown Court, the jury found her guilty of killing her lover, Lee Harvey. The judge told her, "You have been convicted on very strong evidence. Only you know what precisely happened that night, but we have all seen the terrible consequences." There was no reaction whatsoever from the woman in the dock. Lee Harvey's parents gave a sigh and then hugged each other. The former model claimed Lee Harvey was a victim of road rage. The nation debated the case, but a jury of 9 women and 3 men decided it. Her defense was a lie. While Andrews' story was pure mythology, there was some police anxiety. They never found the murder weapon, and they had to prove Andrews was the only possible suspect.
Yes, I'm very pleased that the court ordeal is now finally over for Maureen and Ray Harvey and their family. I hope now that they can all move forward and start to rebuild their lives. As far as the West Mercia Constabulary is concerned, obviously this was a particularly difficult investigation, but I think today's verdict is a testament to the thorough and professional manner in which the investigation team actually conducted this inquiry. This was a particularly brutal murder, and I do take some satisfaction from the fact that the case has been brought to a successful conclusion.
Lee Harvey's parents also left the court for the last time. They sat through every day of the trial.
It's not a day to be, it's not a day for celebration, but what it is justice for Lee.
Yeah, all right.
Lee Harvey was stabbed 30 times by Andrews. There were 3 prison officers around Andrews in the dock as the judge sentenced her, but she just stood there with her arms folded. She said nothing, she made no movement at all. The judge told her there was only one sentence prescribed by law. She would go to prison for life. Colin Baker, ITN, Birmingham Crown Court.
And our reporter Helen Wright is at Birmingham Crown Court. Now, Helen, you were in the court throughout the proceedings this morning. What was the atmosphere like when the verdict came in?
Well, Julia, the atmosphere in Court 9 here at Birmingham Crown Court was tense, almost electric, as the jury filed back in just after 11 o'clock. And even though every seat in the room was taken, there was absolute silence as the jury announced the guilty verdict. The only sound that broke that silence was the sound of Lee Harvey's parents breathing a heavy sigh of relief and hugging each other. There were no tears from them, and as you heard in Colin Baker's report, no celebrations either.
And no reaction from Tracy Andrews either. She's been remarkably impervious all the way through, hasn't she?
Well, apart from shaking her head slightly as the guilty verdict was announced, she sat motionless and expressionless throughout the proceedings. And her parents, who were sat just a few feet away from her in the dock, also showed no emotion. They just bowed their heads slightly as the life sentence was passed. And after that, Tracy Andrews, without looking at anyone else in the courtroom, walked very quickly from the dock.
Helen Wright, thanks very much.
Now, other news. A British woman suffering from AIDS today spoke of her relief as a Cypriot fisherman was convicted of knowingly infecting her with the virus during a holiday romance. Jeanette Pink said she would now wanted to get on as well as possible, enjoy her family and get on with her life. Paul Giorgio, who hasn't yet been sentenced, faces up to 2 years in jail. Robert Hall reports.
He has made legal history, but reduced his former lover's life to physical ruin. Paul Giorgio, a fisherman from the resort town of Ayia Napa, met Jeanette Pink when she moved to Cyprus following her divorce. She discovered too late that his wife had died from AIDS and that he was HIV positive. Whilst giving evidence earlier this summer, Mrs. Pink explained her reasons for bringing the case.
I can't change what's happened to me, but I just want the general public to be aware that this can happen to anybody, and it is a very serious thing. It is a life-threatening disease, and you can die of this, and please be careful.
At today's hearing, the judge said Giorgio's evidence that Mrs. Pink knew of his condition was unreliable. He'd had no hesitation in accepting her version of events. Outside, Giorgio, now diagnosed as an AIDS sufferer, said his condition would help him face his sentence.
I know I'm going to die soon. Nobody's going to scare me anymore. Even the death, they did scare me, and I'm going to scare me.
Mrs. Pink, who says she'll never return to Cyprus, said in a brief statement, "I am glad that at long last this is all over. I now want to get as well as possible, enjoy my family and get on with my life." Giorgio will return to court for sentencing in 2 days' time. Robert Hall, ITN.
Still to come, Rosemary West's lawyer...
Protection against the sun. Even mowing the lawn can put their life at risk. It seems that rarely do we take adequate precautions to cover up.
More and more people are spending time outside doing sporting and other leisure activities, and they're not taking adequate precautions to protect their skin from the sun. So, for example, we know that only 1/3 of people, when they're outside gardening, golfing, walking or cycling, will be using a sunscreen.
The message seems to be getting across to many sunbathers on the beach, but still the incidence of skin cancer are growing at an alarming rate. There are 40,000 new cases reported in Britain every year. So it's to the golf courses and gardens that health campaigners are turning their attention.
You're walking down the fairway, you don't realise how hot it is out here. And if you don't use something protective, then the danger, especially on the back of my head, back of my neck, it's horrendous.
I just wear my hat, make sure I'm covered up so don't get sunstroke, stuff like that, make sure I've got plenty of water. But for actual sun creams or anything like that, nothing at all.
I don't, no, I don't give it any thought.
So even on our fairways, it can take only half an hour to burn. The message is simple: cover up to stay healthy. Tim Rogers, ITN.
A controversial bill aimed at banning hunting was launched this morning, despite confirmation from the government that it's unlikely to become law. A Downing Street spokesman said the private member's bill wouldn't be given extra time. However, the Labour MP behind it, Mike Foster, said he was sure it would get the overwhelming backing of the House of Commons. Our political correspondent Tom Bradby reports.
The MP at the centre of attempts to ban hunting launched his bill this morning with a video designed to demonstrate the basic cruelty of the sport. But ministers have indicated the bill won't get government time, and the campaigners appeared to concede immediately their chances of success are limited.
It's obviously very difficult for me to assess the exact chances of this bill becoming law, because I just do not know what the opponents of this bill will actually do to stop it. I hope that there is overwhelming support on November the 28th to make sure this vote has a clear mandate.
I think I would have to honestly say the chances of success are limited. But the only point I would make to my colleagues in Parliament, quite frankly, and I hope they'll think about this, there'll be a growing rise of contempt for the parliamentary process if this bill is frustrated by basically people talking and filibustering.
That a reference to the problems caused by MPs deliberately wasting time to talk the bill out. The pro-hunting lobby are ever more confident that the huge rally in Hyde Park was a turning point and that the government will ensure the bill is quietly frustrated.
They can't come up with a bill that is fair and that is workable, and they have got no case. They have got no case at all for banning hunting, and the more the subject is examined, the more that becomes crystal clear.
The campaigners announced today they'd be conducting a consultation exercise this summer and a nationwide tour in the autumn to drum up support. They're clearly trying to exert moral pressure on government ministers to change their minds and give the bill a chance. Tom Bradby, ITN at Westminster.
Now, business news, and the case for another interest rate rise was strengthened today. Bank of